What is up, everybody? What is good today? It is a cloudy day out here in Denver, Colorado. It's raining and everything. So it's a good day to be in the house. It's a good day to be dressed down, chilling. Um, so I just want to take a minute to welcome you on in. Thank you for joining me. And let me say what's up, what's up, what's up. Um, we're going to start talking about it. I don't have long today. I got some mommy duties coming up. Um, I used to be in corporate America. What is up, y'all? What is up? I used to be in corporate America, and I would tell you the one thing that I struggled with the most in corporate America was the fact that it was so difficult to cook my family dinner and like have us have, real food. And so I'm thankful that that's like something that I don't struggle with now. I pretty much get to cook my kids, real food on a nightly basis. And so I got some mommy duties coming up. And so I'm going to make sure that I'm not on here for too long. But what is up, y'all? Come on in. We're going to talk about this idea around a silver bullet. And it frustrates me because I feel like this idea around a silver bullet causes a lot of divide in our communities. And so I want to talk about it a little bit and just have a discussion around how we need to not kind of have this either or mentality, but have an and mentality. Like we need this and we need that. It's not a we need this or that. It's not a, it can only be one way kind of a thing because the issues in the Black community are very multifaceted. I think it's important that we always keep that at the forefront, that there isn't just this one, silver bullet kind of a situation, right? And if you're not familiar with what I mean by a silver bullet, let me kind of give you that example. Like sometimes we feel like there is one thing that's getting ready to be the end all be all answer. This is it. This is what it is. And that's just not the case. That's not the case. And but I see that play out in a lot of conversations because you'll hear people say, well, the thing is, we need this one thing. And if we have this one, one situation, we'd be, good to go. And it's like, nah, not really. So what's up, y'all? What's up? I want to welcome you on in. Thank you for joining me. Please hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and share this information out. I just want to tell you, I appreciate that the platform is growing. Hey, I want to just let you know that is very appreciated, and so I'm gonna continue to come on every Tuesday, every Thursday. We are getting ready to we're starting to prepare things to head out to Detroit, so I'm very excited about that. I travel to Detroit frequently at this point, but I'm very excited to be coming out with my team and really getting on the ground with some organizations, and we've been networking with some dope people, so it's looking good. So come on in. And before I forget, you can now text if you want to stay up to date with the Black Agenda on tour. You can text 484848. So you want to text Black Agenda to 484848 and get added to that text list, and we'll let you know if there are updates and things like that coming out. So make sure you go ahead and do that. And then y'all know the whole situation that happened with Farrakhan, right? And it wasn't just Farrakhan, like just for clarity, the Black community kind of focused in on Farrakhan, but Facebook banned like several people who they considered to be dangerous. Now, I don't believe that it is dangerous for people who are oppressed to fight back against their oppressors, but nevertheless, I think what we have to remember sometime on these platforms that we don't own, that we have to continue to find ways in which we can, connect with each other, right? So if you go over to the blackagendaontour.com, one, you can get your ticket. Two, you can now sign up for our email list. So we are promoting an email list, and that way we can make sure that we're staying up to date in case we get kicked off Facebook, because we've been kicked off Facebook. Michelle's been kicked off a bunch of times, right? Michi X, she's been kicked off a ton of times. I've been kicked off Facebook. Luckily, we have not been kicked off of YouTube, but Michi's videos, they get demonetized or lower monetization all the time because of her messaging. And so it's just important, for us to recognize that we don't own these platforms. And so we're going to use them and utilize them as much as possible. But we also have to be able to control the way that we get in contact with each other. Look, there she goes. What's up? Michi's in the house. And she said, text Black Agenda to 484848. So that is what's up. I definitely want to make sure that, especially if you are in Detroit, if you are in Brooklyn or in New York, in the New York area, go and get your tickets at the Black Agenda on Tour. What is up, Houston? That's the other half of where I'm from. My daddy is from Houston. So I got all type of family running around up in there. But all right, so let me get started, y'all. Let me talk a little bit about what is going on. So I think that it's important for us to really recognize and understand that there are differences between causes and symptoms, right? The majority of the issues that we see inside of Black America, whether you want to talk about, and let me back that up, because I want to preface this with the fact that a significant amount of the things that we see as issues in the Black community are not as prevalent as they may seem. And part of that is the fact that we don't own media stations, we don't own media outlets, and so we don't control our narrative. We don't control what gets said about us. We don't control the way that we are perceived. And that is a very long-standing situation, right? This goes back really, as far as I can tell, my research has shown me that the perception of that are on like more of a wide scale, way has been, at least since the Civil War, when they begin to change the messaging of the way that Blacks are perceived. So I guess now that I'm even saying that out loud, it probably predates that, but I think that's when it was kind of like on the big screen, right? When you have things like movies that come out, right? So The Birth of a Nation came out and it portrayed Black people as this like vicious, dangerous type of animal. And then previous to that, we were, viewed as being docile. And then, even if you want to look at our tribes over in Africa, then, they were viewed as being savages and not, not cultured, right? So there's always been this like messaging around our image, specifically, within the white community, and specifically, in particular towards violent white racists. There is this perception of how we look and or the way that we're portrayed, and subsequently that same messaging is also taught to us. So what I see oftentimes is that we believe about us what they say about us, right? And so we see things like absentee fathers, or black fathers aren't shit, right? And the reality is that there are statistics and studies that show that when allowed, keyword, when allowed, Black fathers are some of the most involved fathers that are out there, right? So again, it's not that it's really about what messaging is put out there and who is controlling that narrative, and then understanding that we're being fed that narrative. So when I'm saying Black issues, a lot of these issues do exist in our communities, but they are also drawn out and perceived to be in ways that they're not necessarily. But when we think about Black issues, we think about things like absentee fathers. We think about things like single mothers. We think about things like being uneducated or lazy, lacking any sort of wealth, and we think about welfare queens, right? So there's these images that come to mind when we think about Black issues. So I'm not going to say Black people, because there's definitely a movement that is promoting, Black empowerment, Black magic, we're beautiful, and these, positive messages. But when we begin to think about Black issues, then I think there's a floodgate of images that are pretty consistent that we see, whether it's things like violence, drugs, drug dealers, right, or jail. I mean, that whole gambit, right? So it's important just for us to understand that these messages are put out there by the media, and it's a media that we don't control. And so one thing that you can do, and let me just throw this out there, is, for starters, get that shit out your house, right? I don't have a TV. I haven't had cable for probably going on 4 years, probably headed into my 4th year. I don't think I'm quite at the 4-year mark, but somewhere around there. So I got rid of cable. My daughter is 3. I got rid of cable when I was pregnant with her. So somewhere in that range. But I think it's important, just to, first of all, just to get that shit about your house, right? And control what you watch. There are other avenues to determine what it is that you want to watch and what it is that you want to see. But when you just turn on your television and you are having whatever, whatever they're playing, come into your home, I think is damaging to us, and it's damaging to our kids, right? Even if it's subliminally, like you have the news playing and they just hear that shit on repeat. And understand that a lot of our messaging comes through repetition. If you look at the news cycle, if you really pay attention, they literally repeat the news cycle over and over and over again until they have a new story to add into the cycle. They'll kick out the one that is either the oldest or the one that's not getting a lot of press or the one that doesn't have any updates, and they'll keep repeating that cycle over and over and over again. And so they do this because that repetition gives you messaging that you can then repeat. And it's important, even in that learning process, for us to understand how we learn, right? Like we learn visually, and that's why video and imagery is very appealing. We also learn through beats and music and audio, right? We also learn by what we read. We also learn by what we write. And so there are all these different ways, and we learn by what we touch. But, there's all these different ways that we learn. And when we look at how the media presents itself, if you are watching something, listening to something at the same time, and then you go and have a conversation about that thing with somebody else, you are now speaking it. It's like you are solidifying that message inside of your soul, whether or not it is, right or wrong, right? Don't go back and then like read a short, news article on it where they give you the highlights of, said thing. Like now you've read it, now you've seen it, now you've heard it, now you've repeated it. And that message gets deep inside of you, despite whether it's right or wrong. And so we have to ignite, or we have to recognize how we are fed this consistent messaging, and recognize that messaging conditions us to see and do things a certain way, and it's not always the right way. So we have to recognize that there's a difference between symptoms and causes. And Black issues are not causes; they are symptoms. They are symptoms of the cause. The cause is the system. So there are systems in place. Those things cause these symptoms inside of the Black community. So when you think about things like, let's say, absentee fathers. Okay, so absentee fathers are symptoms of breaking apart families. That started all the way back in slavery, devaluing the family, not allowing for family ties to be built, right? I mean, if you want to think about everything from buck breaking to raping our women, pulling apart children, separating families, not allowing families to legitimately get married, like all of these different types of things from hundreds of years ago that, started by devaluing the family within our own minds, right? And then you move that into all the way up into more present day government programs, as well as things like the prison system, right? I mean, all these different things combined create the symptom of having absentee fathers. It's not just that Black men don't give a shit about their kids, right? Because we all know a ton of them who do. The majority of them do. And us not even being able to relate when relationships don't work out, that is also a symptom, right? So the idea that Black men and Black women are pit against each other, I remember I was just, I do go in and respond to comments. So let me say that. I go in and I respond to comments as I see fit. And I'll say that like I'm not getting ready to have an internet argument with somebody. I have way too much shit going on to be doing that. But I will go in and I'll talk back to people who have left messages. So there, I talked in this video that I did about why Becky is bad for our bottom line. And I literally said in the video, that I was focusing in on the men. But I was basically saying that, Black women are the least protected people on the planet. So this guy wants to go back and fight me on that. Black men are the least protected. Like, okay, the idea that we would then be pit against each other because somehow you as a Black man think that your plight is worse than mine as a Black woman. Like you're going to live off of your experiences. I'm going to live off of my experiences. I said, hey, guy, let's just agree that we're all in the same boat and it's shit for all of us. Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, that is what it is, right? We're at the bottom of the totem pole, but it's interesting that people would come and want to argue that point. Who has it worse off, Black women or Black men? Well, shit, we've all been raped. We've all been fucked up by the system. We are all struggling. There's a pay gap for all of. I mean, it's like, why would we have that fight, right? And so we're at the bottom of the barrel trying to figure out who's lowest in the barrel. Well, we all at the bottom of the barrel. And so that idea that, we go back in and have those fights with each other is because we are the low-hanging fruit. And what we do is we spend more time attacking each other than we do attacking those who are actually doing damage to us and oppressing us. We are not attacking the system, we're attacking each other. And so that idea in and of itself is a system, right? It was a system that is designed to have that infighting, because that infighting is what keeps us not focused on the systems that are actually doing the damage. So let me give you this example, okay? Causes versus symptoms. And this is something that frustrates me. I'm not a holistic health expert by any means, but let me just give you this example, right? So think of it like the body. When your body has a fever, the fever is not the cause. The fever is a symptom. The cause is, let's say, a virus, right? In this example, we're going to say a virus, okay? Because white people are like a virus. The cause is the virus. The symptom is the fever. But oftentimes what I hear is, so-and-so has a fever, so I'm going to go and treat, I'm going to go and get some Tylenol. Let me treat the fever. Now, I'm not going to say that you can't treat the fever, but I'm going to break this down a little bit more. First of all, you need to treat the symptom. You need to treat the cause, not the symptom, right? You can't really truly treat a fever. Like, you can break it, but why does the fever even exist? The fever exists because something wrong is happening inside of your body, and the fever is there making what's happening very uncomfortable. So think about it like this. If you get a virus, your immune system goes to attack that virus, right? And then your immune system begins to heat up, which on the outside causes a fever. But on the inside, what's happening is that virus is being attacked. And if you go and suppress the fever, or you suppress the immune system, or you try to treat the symptom without addressing the cause, what happens is you're actually making your body a more hospitable host to the virus. So what do I mean by that? That means that when your body heats up, it is making it uncomfortable for the virus to exist inside of your body. But on the outside, you are also then uncomfortable, right? So you go and you try to keep yourself comfortable, and therefore you want to break the fever, and that actually causes you to be sick longer, because the virus is now very comfortable living inside of your body. It's very comfortable inside of its host. And so what happens is that we begin to suppress our immune system, right? And then what happens when you're eating things like sugary foods or caffeine, right? When you're sick, like, those things suppress your immune system, right? What happens when you're being fed poisonous water? What happens when your mind is not right? What happens when you're not getting rest? All of those things can suppress the immune system. There's a lot of things that you can do to suppress your immune system, which means that virus has an opportunity to just run wild, right? But then what happens when the virus gets, let's say, an extra boost? So I just want you to think about, this is how it is to be Black in America. Like, we have been purposely suppressed, and the virus has been boosted. And so our systems are running like chaotic, right? Nothing is working, but we're steadily trying to treat just the symptoms. And the more we try to treat the symptoms, we are actually allowing for the virus to stay inside of our bodies and be very, very comfortable. We're so busy attacking each other. We're so busy trying to put band-aids on the symptoms that we are not actually attacking the root cause, and we are not putting all of our efforts and all of our attention and time and resources towards attacking the actual system. The systems that exist inside of this country don't even work for white people. You got middle class and lower class poor white people who are pissed about the system. So what do you think it's doing to us? We're damn near dead, right? So we have to begin to really get into understanding that it's the system that we need to be attacking, not each other, not just focusing on the symptoms, but we have to begin to destroy the systems I'm sorry, the symptoms. Don't focus on the symptoms. We have to begin to destroy the systems that are at play. And so then what happens is that we go out and we get that Tylenol and we've made ourselves comfortable. So what is present day Tylenol? That is the television, which is still just suppressing you, right? That is the fact that you want to live this life out there, like you want to live like LeBron James, and you want to live like Beyonce, and you want to live like, you know, the fake influencers that you see on Instagram. You want to live like you're trying to get to this life where you feel like you can travel and move and groove and do. And we're not thinking about the fact that individual success is not the success of the group. Statistically, me doing well does not mean my kids do well. Matter of fact, statistically, me doing well says my kids are going to be horrible. They're going to be left without nothing. And so we think when we have had, you know, one individual who's made it, or we see one example of success, we are going towards that without recognizing that the system is still at play. And the system is what's going to cause for our children to not be able to move forward and advance, right? And so we have to take our collective power and begin to push it towards the symptom and begin to destroy the system. You cannot fix the system. The system is not broken. So we're over here trying to fix something that is operating exactly as it's intended. We know it's operating as it's intended. You got people trying to fix the school system. The school system is doing exactly what the school system is supposed to do. Rich white people, let's even take Black folks out the picture. Rich white people need poor, barely educated people to work at their jobs for next to nothing, for just enough to give you hope that you can one day be like them. Just enough so that you can go and spend and scrap to buy what they're selling you, right? So this cycle, even if you pull Black folks from the system, the cycle ain't working for white folks. Poor white people. The only real issue is that poor white people, like what they're complaining about, we're beneath that. So when white folks is out here saying they can't pay their student loans, they're struggling with medical bills, when white folks are saying the college system isn't working, you got Black folks who I have literally had elders who have hit me up and are so upset that I say, do not go to college. And I can tell you, because I'm literally in the middle of living this nightmare from college myself right now. I've actually been going through a struggle for probably going on 4 years because student loans stop me from financing bigger shit. So the things that I want to get, I have to save and save and save and dig and crawl and find where I'm going to pull these assets from, because I cannot just go and get a loan because my debt to income ratio is messed up, because I have coming around $80,000 worth of student loans now. And I know people who have $200,000 and $300,000 of student loans. God bless their soul. Because my $80,000 is killing me. My $80,000 literally prevents me from purchasing assets. You see all these people with lifestyles on Instagram who own nothing. They own nothing. They are not making all the millions and millions of dollars that they claim to be making. $1 million a year is $83,000 every single month. $83,000 a month gets you $1 million a year. They are not living that life. And people who are millionaires are struggling because there is this issue in America in particular that just wants to consume and consume and consume. And you're constantly looking at what the next person is showing you in their pictures. And you have no idea how you're going to get there. There's a young lady that I work with, a client, and prior to being a client, she was running a program for mamas. It'll come back to me. But she was running a program for mamas. And so she said she bought a ticket to Afropunk in Paris ticket, the Afropunk ticket and the plane ticket and paid $120 something, right? I'm not going to say there aren't people out there who can find those deals, but let me ask you a question. Is it going to be normal for everybody who wants to go to Afropunk in Paris to be able to buy their plane ticket and their ticket to Afropunk for $123? Is that normal? Does that happen for everybody? We look at these things that are going on and we make it like we're coveting what people look like without recognizing that this is not necessarily, or it's not necessarily what it is, right? And you don't know how they got there. But what I can tell you is that it doesn't matter what those lifestyles are looking like. Those people are not millionaires. The vast majority of them are not. But the good thing is that there are ways and things that you can do stuff, like the internet allows for quite a bit of things to have happened that didn't happen in the past. But if we don't understand things like financial literacy, if we don't understand things like how the education system hurts us, if we don't understand things like how to unify and work together, then it's really not going to matter. And so again, coming back to the silver bullet situation, it's not an either or. It really has to be an and. We do have to hold the government accountable. And we have to understand financial literacy, and we have to have home ownership, and we have to break down the preschool to prison pipeline, and we have to fix the judicial system, and there are multiple things at play that got us to where we are. It's not a one shot thing. It's not a one thing. Home ownership in and of itself is not going to cure Black economics. We are not going to close the racial wealth gap with home ownership. We're not going to close it by investing inside of the stock market. We're not going to close it by getting reparations. We're not going to close it by dismantling the education system and building our own schools. We're not going to close it by those things. We're going to close it by all of those things. That's a tall order. I'll be the first to give it to you. That's a tall order. We got a lot of work to do. It's possible that we won't see it in our lifetime. It took us hundreds of years to get here. So it's possible we won't see it in our lifetime. But what has to happen is that we have to recognize it's not one thing. And you can find the one thing you're passionate about, and you can fight for that, but fight for that in tandem with the other pieces that have to be at play, because all of those things are going to work together. So if you want to talk about building up businesses, then build your business that has to support your family. But you know what else it has to support? It has to support the community, because as long as we're still talking about unequal wages and income gaps, we have to be the ones who can begin to increase those income gaps. When we look at that top-down model, the reason why the top-down model doesn't work, the trickle-down model doesn't work, is because as the government continues to make it better for multi-millionaires and billionaires, the one thing that the government hasn't done is made that trickle down. They haven't made it trickle down. They say, hopefully, those people will do the right thing and they'll pay you better wages, but they're not. But we need to recognize that we can't do business like Jeff Bezos does business. We're not him. He lives a whole different lifestyle, a whole different life. Even before he was Jeff Bezos, he lived a different life. He's a white man. He doesn't live our same existence. So if we recognize, if we recognize that we have to build, and then we have to make it affordable so that we can begin to really build, right? Like, I own housing. I cannot go in and look at Detroit and say, oh, well, I see that there are lofts downtown that are renting for $1,200. So I'm going to make my apartments rent for $1,200. Black folks cannot afford $1,200 rent in Detroit. So I need to be able to make a profit, but I also need to make my housing affordable for the people who I want living in my housing so that I can help them get on their feet. If we continue to always think like how they think, we continue to always think like we have to do what they do, we need to build so much power. I just want you to think about $83,000 a month. And then tell me what you're finna buy for $83,000 a month. Tell me what kind of life can you live for $83,000 a month if you were to learn contentment with yourself and what you have. I can tell you right now, I can afford let me tell you what I can afford. I can afford a $4,000 house, a maid service, a pooper scooper service, because I got dogs and I don't like picking up dog shit. I can afford a tutor. I can afford lawn service. I can afford laundry service. I can afford to buy organic food and food that's sourced properly. I can afford my health care. I can afford my hair, my nails. I don't even get my hair and my nails done a lot, but I can afford those things. I can afford movies, and I can afford vacation on approximately $12,000 a month. So if I made $83,000 a month and I was still struggling, what in the fuck am I doing? Why wouldn't I be able to help shift some of that into our communities in order to make sure that we all get ahead? Because it's not an either or. So my responsibility then, as a community member who understands and recognizes what's going on, is then can I take some of that money and help build that Black school, because we know we need that? Can I take some of that money and help give it to the grocery stores? Y'all know that grocery store that's trying to come up in Atlanta? They want to become a franchise. There's a few grocery stores out there. I'm not saying they're the only ones, but they're the ones that I saw that have a franchise model. Could we help fund that grocery store and then get grocery stores going up around the country in a franchise model? Could I buy a franchise? Could I then take some of that money and create some angel investment or giving circles or impact investment funds so that we can begin to fund our own organizations? When we don't understand those systems, we pour our resources into places that still can't help us. I'll give you an example: the Black banking industry. First of all, I'm a advocate of banking Black. So let's just put that out there so we're not on different pages. I'm an advocate of banking Black. I actually do bank with One United Bank. But here's the thing. It really doesn't matter if I bank Black, because the banking industry still runs off of the way that the banking industry runs, which means that I have to have credit, which means I have to have collateral and assets. They look at what my income is. They look at my debt to income ratio. Banking industries are very risk adverse investment lenders, right? They're very risk adverse. So they are not lending to the average Black person because we don't understand how to get our credit in order. We don't understand how to budget properly. We don't understand how to scale back. And then I'm going to even put that out here. That's also partly propaganda. Because truth be told, Black people who are working 9-to-5s actually are not doing all that bad when it comes to how they control their finances in comparison to white people. In comparison, and I'm making that comparison because we can all do better. Definitely, this country is a consumerist country. So Black people are not the only consumers. White people are consumers. White people are consumers. So again, that's propaganda. But the difference is that it's the money on the dollar. They have 6 to 11 times the wealth, depending on what resource that you look at, right? So when they're consumers, it doesn't hurt them or affect them the same way as it does when we're consumers. But again, we stay trying to live that white life. We stay looking at what they do and try to live the life that they're living. That is what doesn't work for us. So if we want to look at anything, it's not necessarily about becoming this separate thing. It's about recognizing and thinking or realizing that we don't need to live like them. We can live like us. We can do things that are cooperative. There was a woman who contacted me, and I'm going to be honest. I get frustrated with people who I feel like don't do any solid research. Google is the research tool of all research tools. You can put in practically any phrase. Matter of fact, Google will suggest some phrases to you if you didn't get it right the first time, right? So if I'm doing a search, I might think of one way to say it. If I didn't come up with the answer I was looking for, I'm gonna think of another way to say the exact same thing. Tomato, right? One of them ways, Google is going to start lending me some results. And when people come to me and it just shows that they have not done anything, like I cannot plan out your life for you. I cannot answer questions for people who have not done research. Now, if you come to me and you've spent some time and you've researched and you want to get my take on it, or you want to know how to proceed, maybe how you should proceed forward, or you might ask, what are some of the things that I've done, or are there any resources I could point you to? I can help you there, but I can't help somebody who doesn't, who just doesn't do anything, right? But At any rate, one of the things that she said is that she was struggling living paycheck to paycheck, and that she wasn't even making ends meet living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I don't know this woman's situation, but here's what I would say. I spoke about this before. I have had roommates for forever. I've had roommates for a very long time. This is how I work to stay on my feet. I've had roommates for a very long time. We don't want to be uncomfortable. That's why we go and get Tylenol, despite the fact that Tylenol doesn't treat the cause. It only treats the symptom, because we can't be uncomfortable. If we grew to a place of being uncomfortable, we would fight back in a different way. When you look at what fueled the civil rights, was fucking Jim Crow. Most of us today cannot even imagine what it would be like, me included, to live in Jim Crow. I'm too defiant. I speak my mind too much. They would have lynched me. I would have been dead. I would have been beat up somewhere on the side of the road. They would have raped me. They would have then hung me out somewhere. The me today, if I had my mentality today in Jim Crow, it wouldn't have been a good look for me. You know what I'm saying? But what we did was that uncomfortability, that suppression caused us to fight. The number one thing that happened for us is that we were able to gain some semblance of social equality, right? So now we can eat at the same restaurants, we can shop in the same stores, I can drink out the same water fountain, wooty fucking do. I don't like drinking after white folks. I can do all those things now. And so I've gotten comfortable. So the fight is gone. So again, they've turned us into fighting in on each other instead of fighting the system. We ain't even thinking about the system no more. Now we just trying to look better than the next person who look like us. And so, we're trying to fight for status versus power. I'm gonna get my guy Negus Vu on here. We're gonna talk about that one. I'm gonna try and see if I can get him on Thursday. And we'll talk about this status versus power thing if I can get him on. But it's important just for us to recognize, like, we're fighting for these status symbols instead of fighting for actual power that can make changes. So I'm gonna get out of here. Because I just think those are some things we need to think about. Just understand, y'all, it's an and. That's my overall point today. It's an and. There is no silver bullet. There's not going to be one thing that's going to liberate Black America. That's not what's going to happen. Or Black people across the diaspora, or Black people over in the continent of Africa, right? A lot of those countries are suffering from violent white racists. Violent white racists, that's why I said they're a fucking virus, man. Violent white racists have plagued this country, this world. They've plagued it. They are the minority, and they have plagued it because they have the majority of the people across the world. All phenotypes can be traced back to Africa, but they have all of the world looking for European beauty standards, looking for white saviors. I mean, if you think about every narrative and story in storybooks and movies, in the media, all these places that have this white savior, we can't do nothing because, heaven forbid, all the things that the African continent, the Asian continent, the North American and the South American continent, all the culture, all the rituals and rites and the spirituality, all the mathematical advances in the systems. I mean, think about the pyramids and irrigation systems. I mean, all the innovations that we've done, this small group of people, of violent people, have gotten us thinking that we need them, right? And I don't subscribe to that process. I don't subscribe to that mentality. So just understand that it's not a silver bullet. There's not going to be one thing that we have to do in this country in order to have Black liberation. It's going to be an and we have to fight the justice system, and we have to have reparations. We do have to have that. And we have to have financial literacy. We have to understand that this is now not just an American financial system. It is a global financial system. You need to understand how it works. And we need to dismantle the education system, and we need to dismantle the preschool to prison pipeline, and we need to have ownership, and we need to, and so, we need to get uncomfortable enough to put the fight back in us, because these systems have to be destroyed. They can't be fixed. They're not broken. So that is all that I got. Again, thank you for joining me on this live stream. Make sure that you hit that subscribe, share. You can catch me at BBI Professional. You can catch me personally at Jice Johnson. You can also go to our Patreon at Grind with Jice. And so on there, we're doing business building, productivity, mindset, motherhood, and money, and a whole lot more is over there. So go to Patreon at Grind with Jice, and catch me on next time, guys. I'll be on Thursday. Let me see if I can get Niggas Vu. If I can't get Niggas Vu, no worries. I'll be on here with something else. But let me see if I can get Niggas Vu, because I think it's important for us to have that conversation around power versus status, and so he brought that conversation up on his personal page, and I thought it was a real interesting conversation, because I see it play out so much in our community. So I'm gonna talk to him, see if I can pull him on. And don't forget to text Black Agenda to 484848. Make sure that you head on over and get your tickets to the Black Agenda on tour.com. And I will see y'all on Thursday. Peace.